Joining me live is Shadow Communications Minister David Coleman for more. Thanks for your time. Interesting argument from X that in particular they cannot be censored on global images. So Australia can say don't show anything in Australia, but around the world that can't be something the Australian government insists upon. What do you make of that?
Well, look, the bottom line here is X has got to comply with Australian law, Tom. I mean, we put the Online Safety Act into being in 2021 for precisely this kind of situation, give the eSafety Commissioner clear powers. And of course, a lot of this content is hosted overseas, Tom. So the servers aren't in Australia, but it's hitting Australians very hard. And so that's why the law allows the Commissioner to put orders that, affect overseas servers and so on. And the Commissioner is doing a fantastic job. She stands up for Australians every day. We gave her very significant powers in the Online Safety Act for precisely this kind of situation when we're in government. And we know we can't rely on the social media companies. I mean, it is as plain as your hand in front of your face, Tom. Like we can't trust social media companies, and that's why the Online Safety Act is so important. And we back the eSafety Commissioner 100%.
What do you make of those arguing that in this situation, because we're not talking about misinformation in this aspect, we'll get to that in a moment, but this is graphic content, but this happened and it was actually broadcast anyway, it was streamed live, that perhaps there should be a warning up, but if someone wants to view this, what happened, and perhaps reflect on what it means for Australian society, whatever it might be, that companies should be able to put it out there if they wish.
Tom, this material is really disturbing content, and not only are adults seeing it, but kids are seeing it. And that's why the Online Safety Act is so important for the Commissioner to say, that's not acceptable. We would not allow that sort of violent imagery to be seen, on TV, and it needs to come down. And it's also, Tom, why age verification for kids, which the Commissioner has recommended is trialled, is also really important, because the best scenario here would be that kids never saw this material, not only that it's taken down after it has been seen. And the Online Safety Act has very substantial powers about taking down material, but we want the government to pursue the age verification trial as well, so that fewer kids see this sort of awful material.
On the misinformation side, so in the wake in particular the Bondi stabbings, the misinformation that was getting out there, Labor wants to get its bill going again on this, withdrew it, you had previous objections. Are they being addressed? Are you working with Labor? Because we keep hearing this is bipartisan. Is that actually happening behind the scenes?
Oh, look, we're very open to having a look at the revised legislation, Tom. It's obviously important we do everything we can in terms of protecting Australians from dangerous, violent imagery online. Now, the issue with the misinformation bill, and it's a very serious issue, is it went basically into every aspect of Australian political communication. It would have affected what people said about issues like The Voice or what they thought of the government, a whole range of things. It's just completely not on in a democracy. And that's why people like Anne Toomey condemned it, Law Council of Australia, Human Rights Commission and many others. So it was a complete non-starter, that legislation, and even the government acknowledged that by withdrawing it. As Peter Dutton said yesterday, we'll look very carefully at the new version, but we do have those significant concerns about free speech and they'll need to be addressed.
Okay, all right, we'll see where that progresses. Parliament coming back relatively soon. I saw the Meta AI tool has been released, Meta being Facebook, let's just call it what people understand it to be. And it's got your attention. The best PMs in Australia apparently were the Labor ones, some of the worst ones with Tony Abbott and Scott Morrison. Peter Dutton is described as one of the least humane MPs. Is this just pulling and collating articles and what people think? I mean, Peter Dutton's pretty unpopular in polling, which we'll go through at 2:30. Is this just sort of collating opinion out there?
This is just an absolute shocker from Meta, and it joins a list of just appalling behaviour by this company. I mean, if you look at Gemini, which is Google's AI chatbot, it sensibly makes different comments about politics and acknowledges its limitations. This is just a shocking situation. And, imagine if the results were reversed and it said that, every single politician that was Liberal that was good and as Labor was bad. And it's just gross incompetence on the part of this company. AI has tremendous potential and tremendous opportunity, but it's got to be managed properly. And this is a disgrace that Meta has put this out. This is a $2 trillion company. To put something like this out, Tom, it's just a damning indictment on the people who are running the business. And it's an absolute shocker.
Let me ask you about potential nuclear power sites finally. A bit of internal tension in the coalition, apparently. How should these be selected? Do they just need to be, here are the best spots around Australia for power generation? Because if you introduce sort of NIMBYism to it, the local member can reject it if they're a Liberal member or national member. Does it become a non-starter?
Oh, look, I think, Tom, one of the really important things with location is making use of the existing infrastructure we have in our power grid. And that's why locating these stations close to previous coal-fired power stations makes so much sense, because you've already got the poles and wires, you've already got the infrastructure running to those locations. Labor, by contrast, by rejecting nuclear out of hand, not even considering it, is basically saying you have to put in the tens of thousands of Ks of infrastructure and wires and so on to reach those renewable locations. So it seems to me that it's common sense for nuclear to be part of our mix. It's zero emissions. We know we've got challenges in electricity supply, and we've certainly got challenges on the price of electricity. And it's very sensible to locate those plants near where the existing transmission infrastructure is, and we'll have more to say on that in due course.
Just finally on this though, and the local community, do they sort of need to accept it? How do you decide if an electorate wants a nuclear power site or is willing to have one, or do they not need to be asked as an electorate?
Oh, look, I think it's definitely appropriate to consult with communities. I think there are many communities in Australia that, are suffering from the loss of jobs and so on in coal-fired plants. And of course, it's appropriate to consult with communities and putting these plants where the existing transmission structure is. It's just common sense 101, and it is something that is the right thing to do. And as I say, in terms of specific locations, we'll have more to say on that down the track.
We'll know soon. David Coleman, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.